Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here. Welcome back to another Thursday episode. Thank you so much for being willing to always join me on Thursdays. It's always much appreciated. And big shout out to every sponsor that helps out with this show, starting with Drew Estate. Thank you so much. BAMF Cigars, or I'm sorry, Rodriguez Olivan Cigars, Olivian Cigars. We have BAMF Cigars. We also have K by Karen Cigars. We have Christoph Cigars, and we have New Air Humidors, as well as McAuliffe Cigars. And tonight, this was a suggestion from the guest to drink this one. Tonight, we are going to be drinking the Axe and Oak original bourbon that they put out, found here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Definitely jump on their website and check them out. Jump over to BAMF.com where you would receive 15% off their entire website. Same with ROCF.com. And the promo code is RMCS15 for 15% off the entire website, people. So this is going to be a really fun show. We have a great guest on who's also an attorney. Who's a young guy, just turned 33, has his own cigar line, and is a great businessman. So let's go ahead and welcome on Max Peters of Maximilian Cigars. How you doing, Max?
What's up, Brian? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
It's my pleasure. We've been talking about it for a while. I'm glad we were finally put a date on it and made it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to give you the start of the show here, just to kind of go ahead and introduce yourself. So I'm going to give you the big screen, and let us know who you are, what cigars you make, and just tell us how to find them.
So, hi everybody. I'm Max Peters. I know a few of you on here tonight. I started Maximilian Cigars probably close to 7 to 8 years ago. It was a pretty interesting story, which Ryan, we can go into a little more about how it all started. But it was it really started as a hobby, and I think that anything in this business, you have to have that passion for cigars and tobacco. So this whole adventure of Maximilian Cigars started as just me being a young guy that really enjoyed it and started to fall in love with the process of it. And, I do a lot of different things. I have some small businesses, and everything I've ever done has sort of always been about the bottom line. How do you make money? What's the best way to make money doing this or that, this business, that business? Cigars, though, were the first thing I ever did that had nothing to do with that. It was never actually even meant to be a business. I never planned on coming out with a cigar. It started just as a thirst for knowledge and like loving everything that was going into it and wanting to understand. You go into a humidor and you see these beautiful boxes, these gorgeous cigars, all the fancy labels. You smoke these great sticks from, people give you a cigar, you try something as a recommendation, and you're seeing the last step of the process. And as the kind of kid that always wanted to take everything apart, like my parents' remote control, which would piss them off, I just sort of, this is a great end product, but where does it all begin and where does it start and what goes into it? And as a complete novice, learning that from the ground up was an amazing experience. And through those years, I always say, it was probably about 3 years of taking this seriously before I actually had a cigar that I would hand you. Or even think about trying to sell you. It was 3 years of sort of just learning the ropes. And I never, there are people who do this from birth. They're born in these farms and in these big factories, and they know it's in their blood. I wish I could say that. I just know, cigars are like wine, like bourbon. It's all personal preference, and I just sort of fell in love with the process of making that, making something that people could enjoy, and then being able to share it with them, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
I'm going to light a cigar, so I hope.
Yeah, no, please
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm actually, we'll have Max here kind of explain his cigars before we get a little deeper in, because there are different color bands, but I only see the one name. So I'm very curious. And I actually have the box out of here. Really, really nice presentation for the Mare. This is the box for that. This is the Lancero box. Really nice slide top. But I noticed that you have, just with the Lanceros, I have three different bands. So can you kind of really quickly explain the three
Definitely.
bands?
So, as I said, if we were looking at this from the traditional sort of how do we make a business out of cigars? How do we sell a cigar to everybody on the face of the earth? The first step would be, let's come up with great marketing and packaging, and then we'll throw the cigars together out of some factory, cheaply. But we're going to sell a cigar to everybody. They're going to be attractive. This actually happened completely in reverse. The cigars were done. They were made. They were ready. I was sharing them with people, and it wasn't until that point that I said, well, if we're gonna sell them, they have to stand out. We have to, I want it to be something that, I want the packaging and the brand to represent the quality that we put into the cigar. So the cigars came first, and I was actually sitting with a good friend of mine in Pennsylvania, which is home for me, northeastern Pennsylvania. And I sat with a friend of mine who has a great marketing business and company, Steve Tallarico, and we're sitting around smoking my cigars as usual. And I'm like, I want to do something different. You go into the humidor, and I love them. I have a collection of labels of every, all these cigars that I smoke, but you generally find there are common themes of most cigar bands and most cigar boxes. It's generally the same stains, or it's the same paper wrapped cardboard boxes. The labels, the traditional smokes, they have the coins on them, and they have that same feel, which I love. But as a small business who's coming out with a brand new cigar that I want people to try, I also knew that I had to get their attention. I had to be a little different. And so sitting there and going over how we're going to do it, I said, what if we made, all the cigars in the box, whatever the box is, we're talking about the original Maximilian cigars. I said, what if the cigars, every label was a little bit different? If you introduce some individuality to the cigars, so that people could go up to the box and find sort of what spoke to them. And Steve, without missing a beat, was like, it's kind of like when you wear a suit, you always wear like flashy socks with crazy patterns on them, and everything, there's always like some little flair. And that was the basis for, why don't we come up with these great patterns? And there's 12 cigars facing in a box, and why don't we, we'll keep the name the same, Maximilian, everything will be the same, but let's put different patterns on every label. Nobody's ever done that, and that would help get people to come over and say, what the hell is going on? So we did that. I designed the box in the Dominican Republic. I went with, if you could see it, this is like Lamborghini orange car paint. So something totally different. And we designed it so that every cigar in the box, hopefully you can get a good look there. But there are 12 different patterns, and all of them started basically off of like the kinds of patterns you would see on crazy socks or crazy neckties or handkerchiefs or things like that. And honestly, the coolest part, which I never really expected, was now these cigars are on the shelf, and you find guys that like guys and gals, they're it's so interesting to see how certain people are attracted to certain different patterns. You know, the guy with the houndstooth coat on, well, of course he's going to take the houndstooth pattern, you know, and the guy with the polka dot tie, or the golf shirt with the stripes on it. It's sort of cool to see how they match it all up. Yeah, that's one of the dot patterns. Here's I'm smoking the Toro size, so it's actually, this size is actually unique. It's a little between a Toro and a Robusto. So if you call it either, you would be correct. But so we did that, and then the next cigar that we just came out with about a year ago, and I'll tell you that story as we get there. But the Mayor cigar, which is what you have, but basically the same thing, all the different patterns in the box. You can see those there.
Yeah, no, I like, so that's actually really fun. You modeled it after a suit, kind of in a suit attire. So
Yeah.
Your entire brand, naming it Maximilian, to me kind of brings off this elegant feel to it. So you essentially made a cigar accessory, a cigar being accessory to a business guy's suit.
Yeah.
Is effectively what you did.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. You know, I take what I wear seriously, and I like to put, whether it's, you know, sweatpants or a suit and tie, I like to put a little effort into it, and so it's sort of, I see the cigar, and I always have, you know, the cigar is an extension of you, and you know, correctly, you'd be lying if you said you didn't go into a cigar bar and judge everybody sitting there based on the kinds of cigars that they're smoking. Not that there's a right or a wrong answer, but you know, the cigar, just like the car you drive, the wine you drink, the way you cut your grass. I mean, these are all, they all say things about you. And why not have, you know, the cigar be even more tailored to the smoker than just having all the same, you know, all the same labels on every cigar.
So do you find people that don't necessarily buy a box of your cigars, but like to go into the shops and buy them one by one, that they try to go for a collection of all the bands?
Yeah. So I've it's funny. I love, we're both drinking bourbon, and I love Blanton's bourbon. And if you know Blanton's bourbon, the tops of the bottles have the horse on top, and if you look closely, there's a letter that on each top that spells out Blanton's. If you were to collect all the different tops, it's
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's very similar to that, where, you know, I find that people like me, when I smoke a cigar, if I like the label, I usually, when I get down to it, I peel the label off and I throw it in my pocket, and it ends up in a jar somewhere. And, you know, I have pictures framed with cigar labels and tabletops and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so people, exactly. I have one behind me somewhere. It's almost empty. Yeah, you can actually see it there. It's I just emptied it. I just emptied it into a bigger one so that I have room. But so people do. They go in and they are drawn to certain ones, and then they realize that there are multiple patterns, and they start to collect others. You know, and honestly, like I said, it's a small company. It's relatively new, and you know, I price the cigars. My margins on the cigars are probably slimmer than almost any cigar that you will find on a shelf in a humidor, and that's just because this is not my. You know, I'm not trying to retire selling cigars. I do this because it's a passion. I'm totally in love with the process of it. I love being able to share the cigar with people. I mean, if we price the cigar based on the rare aged tobaccos that are in it, we could charge $22, $24 for the cigar. I mean, it's got extremely expensive, high quality stuff inside of it. And, I came to that decision when we were ready to finally roll it out and start selling Maximilian cigars. What's the point? Nobody wants to go and try a $20-some cigar for the first time if they've never heard. Now, if you're right, if you're Carlito Fuente and you're selling Opus X, or you're, George Padron or one of these guys, of course, because they have that's a storied brand, and you're it's worth taking that $20 gamble. But I don't want to see people take that gamble on a cigar that they've probably never heard of. I want them to be able to try it. I want them to love it, and I want them to come back and buy more. So that was sort of our goal from the beginning, as far as how do we price the cigar to be able to get it in the hands of novice smokers, experienced smokers, because a lot of novice smokers are attracted to the brand because it sticks out on the shelf. They don't really know anything about it other than it's got a bright, fancy box and all these great labels. And so I want them to have a great experience. And at the end of the day, the cigar has my name plastered all over it, and Maximilian. And I want them to. I want it to be a good representation of anything that I do.
Absolutely. Hey guys, if you're watching the show, let us cigar you're smoking. If you're smoking a Maximilian, let us know what it is. Throw it in the comments. So, you brought up a really good point, Max. And again, I think this goes with you naturally, because I've worked with a lot of attorneys in the past, good, bad, or indifferent. I've done a lot of work with attorneys. I did marketing for a long time and specialized in the legal world and the medical world, because that's where you guys were much more analytical and much less emotional.
Right.
And it's a lot more enjoyable to, to sell to you guys, because I know I'm not taking your food out of your mouth, if that makes sense, versus like a family-run company. But you mentioned something that I've actually talked with a lot of cigar companies, small cigar companies, about, that have reached out to me and asked me for opinions. And you had said that you price your cigar in a way that somebody's not feeling that they have to take a gamble. But in doing so, you're making less off of it. And then you made the case for it is because you're not trying to retire off of this or get rich off of it. It's a passion project.
Right.
But you still are obviously trying to roll that product into a profit at the end of the year. Whether it be $1 or $1 million, you obviously don't want to lose money on it.
No.
So when you're coming to the terms of, should I sell this at 15? I know I could sell it at 15, but I also know I can take a lesser hit and sell it, or a little bit more, and sell it at 12. Why is that beneficial for you to take the hit now, knowing that down the road prices can always go up exponentially every single year to where you can actually hit the margins that you want? So if somebody was calling you with a new cigar, I want to bring it to market.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them on how to price that? What would be your
I think it's actually, it's a great question. I think it depends. I think they would first have to answer this question, which is, why are you selling this cigar? If you're selling this cigar because you've got that capitalist mentality, which I love. It's how I treat every other business that I'm involved in. But if you're out there to sell a cigar to everybody on the face of the earth, and you just want this to be a money maker, I would tell you to do things a certain way. And I would tell you, make only Connecticut wrappers and make only these sizes, because that's 80% of what the cigars that are sold. And I would say, get it made in this area, these factories, these people, keep your costs minimum, cut some corners here and there. And honestly, I could do that. You could, there's a great demand for cigars out there. And if you have a great marketing team, you can go and make a cigar that's not necessarily the highest quality cigar. You can make it very cheaply, and you could probably sell a shitload of them, and make a lot of money. I don't know that those people are going to keep coming back. I mean, you kind of have to keep reinventing yourself and constantly coming out with new lines and following that system. But if you answered the question the other way and you said, well, I'm selling cigars because it's my life's passion and I love it and I poured my heart and soul into this blend and I want people to appreciate it and love it as much as I do, well, then I think you have to look at it a little differently. I think you have to look at it and say, there's a lot of beautiful, delicious cigars on the shelf in every brick and mortar humidor you're going to walk into. There's $7 cigars that I'll smoke over a lot of $15, $16, $17 cigars just because they're, yeah, you're the same way. So I think you have to say, if I really want people to appreciate this brand for the right reasons, and I want to share this quality product, I think you have to say, well, then I need to make the cigar attractive enough price-wise that they're willing to take a chance on me. And the goal is, the long-term goal is that it pays off and that you develop a brand loyalty and that people trust the cigars that you put out and they're comfortable paying a little more as time goes on. When you come out with new blends, they understand that, you know, it's worth the quality, it's worth the money that they're going to put in it for the quality. I think it's just a matter of, are you playing the long game or the short game? And the answer to that question is based on, why are you doing it?
No, and that's a fantastic answer. If you were to, so what I really like about what I heard is the fact that you understand that you could put out a $20 cigar. Everybody may buy it once. Okay. Obviously that's not how you build a business. You build a business based on repeat. So in your mind, you're like, okay, this should be maybe worth 20. In my heart, it's worth 100. But it's like when I asked my brother, why is a McLaren worth 2.5 million? He said, because people will pay for it. He said, there's no other reason why it's worth 2.5 million. So a cigar is only worth what people will pay for. But more importantly, a cigar is only worth what people will buy again. They might have loved that $20 cigar, but because it's $20, it's now looked at as a special occasion cigar versus your cigars that are looked at, what you want to have people look at more as an everyday. Hence why you're willing to bring that price down. Is that more or less kind of what?
Absolutely. You know, that this was, for me, you know, to go back to how I said it before, I mean, this was about playing the long game. And I was fully prepared to come out with this cigar, try to sell it, and, you know, just, you know, you kind of get that imposter syndrome. What the hell business does Max Peters from Scranton, Pennsylvania, what business does he have, you know, getting into the business and opening a factory, doing all of those things, and selling cigars when you have not only these behemoths, you know, these big companies, but you also have all these other small companies who are rocking and rolling and selling these fantastic cigars. You know, so I went through that, you know, and I wanted to, at the end of the day, I knew that my name was going to be on the cigar. I was proud of the cigar. I put a lot of time and effort and money and all of those things into making the blend. Again, and I opened with this, it's personal preference. You know, you make a cigar, you make a bottle of wine, you make a bottle of bourbon. I may love a bourbon that you hate. You may not like bourbon at all. You may be a Scotch guy. You may be a gin guy. It's all personal, and that's fine. And everybody says this. You know, I understand if somebody doesn't like my cigar. I would never be offended if somebody said that flavor profile, I don't like it. I hate it, actually. I would be offended if they said, I can't see the quality in it. You know what I mean? I could drink a rum that I don't necessarily like, but I think you can tell the difference in quality of something. I think you can appreciate a quality without necessarily appreciating
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you can appreciate the construction of a cigar. We do everything the right way. We're never using short filler. We're rolling intubato style. I mean, everything is done there. And if you don't like it, I love it. Tell me what you like. Let's have a conversation. It's no different than if you're on the opposite end of the political spectrum. We don't have to hate each other because we believe different things. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what middle ground we have, and let's build on it and go from there.
Correct. I personally think politics started to go very south when most people in politics stopped smoking cigars.
You're right.
Personally, because I know so many people that I don't necessarily see eye to eye with, regardless of what it is. Raising kids, video games, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
But you can all come around and share the camaraderie of a cigar, whether or not you have a cigar I like or whether or not I have a cigar you like. And to your point, I always tell clients when I work with them, if you don't tell me what's wrong, I can't fix it.
Correct.
So don't come to me 3 months from now and tell me something's been wrong for 3 months and start yelling at me. Tell me 3 months ago. And in the way, it's kind of exactly what you said. Be honest with me. Don't just tell me you don't like it. Tell me why. Give me an opportunity. Maybe I feel the same way and I'm looking for somebody else to give that same feedback that I feel, and I can go, okay, sure. I need to maybe change that because I'm getting that same feedback.
Cigars are you hit right on it, but I've always seen cigars as the great equalizer. I've been fortunate to travel all over the world. And, the first thing I always do when I get to a new city, new country, new town, where can I smoke a cigar? Is there a cigar lounge here, a tobacco shop somewhere, a cigar bar if you're lucky? And you'd be hard pressed to find a lounge, cigar bar, tobacco shop, any of that, where you can't walk in the door and see the greatest mixture of people.
Absolutely.
You're going to see the guy in the suit and tie guy, who's the stockbroker, the lawyer, the nurse in scrubs, the lineman, the guy who's digging ditches, the guy with his plumbing truck parked out front, and those people will be sitting in the same circle. And they'll be having a conversation about whatever. I mean, it's probably it doesn't matter what they're talking about, but the fact is they're talking. And where else in the world do you see all of those different people from different demographics and different backgrounds and different ethnicities and all those things that make us all so different? Where else do you see all those people come together on a regular basis? You walk into a cigar bar and or a lounge anywhere, the Deep South, in Germany, in Canada, you always feel at home. You always feel like you can sit down. I mean, I'm talking 99% of the time. You feel like you can go in there and ask, hey, what have you been smoking? What do you have new in here? What's going? And you're probably going to make friends with the guy who's sitting in the armchair across the room, because he's going to want to know what you're smoking, where you're from.
Absolutely. And if I'm a janitor, if I'm a fast food worker, it's the ultimate equalizer, because I could be sitting next to a doctor, an attorney, a business owner, literally smoking the exact same cigar that we are.
Right.
And now cigars allow people to feel on the same level, in my opinion.
I've accomplished more in my business life over a cigar with someone than in any other format. It's never you're never solving problems in a Zoom meeting. You're never solving problems on a conference call. But when the two decision makers can sit down in a room and have a cigar and talk it out, you're always walking away with a solution. I mean, it always happens that way. And cigar, I think that's what sort of was so inspiring to me in the beginning, was like, that's what was so amazing about cigars. You know, I come from a family who's been very involved in politics, and you know, my grandfather was the former mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania, our hometown. Hence the mayor cigar, the Lancero. This was named after him, and this cigar came about because he loved my cigar. He loved the Maximilian cigars. But as any grandfather would, he doesn't hold anything back. And he says, I love that cigar, but, you know, I really appreciate thin cigars. I like those Lancero sizes. That's what we used to smoke when I was young. And so I sort of secretly blended over a year and a half. I came up with what I thought would be the ultimate cigar for him. And, you know, picking up over the years as a kid with him smoking different cigars, smoking his pipe, and the same with my father, picking up on the things that he liked, and blended this cigar in secret, and to the specifications that I thought he would appreciate most, and then actually gave it to him at Christmas time 2 years ago. So that was where that's where the mayor came from. And by the way, we made the mayor cigar in this old school Cuban size Lancero with the pigtail on it, at a time.
Oh, it's beautiful.
At a time, and I love that you're smoking that cigar, and I appreciate that you're smoking that cigar, because like right now, Lanceros are not. I think the tide is definitely changing. But when I decided to make that cigar, Lanceros were the last kind of cigar that anybody was smoking. I mean, we were in the middle of like, the bigger the ring gauge, the better. You know, 60 plus on everything, right? And you know, I never liked that stuff, but that was what was selling, and everybody was coming out with these huge ring gauge cigars. And here I come down the street with these, you know, dainty thin cigars, and people are looking at me like, "What the hell is this?" But in all honesty, that size, and I came to realize this, you know, when I was spending time in the DR, which is where we make our cigars, when you go to these different factories, and I've been fortunate enough to develop like great relationships with so many of these guys, Carlito Fuente for one, who's been a tremendous inspiration and mentor to me. When you go through these factories and you see what the people making these cigars are smoking, it's Lanceros. And I came to realize, because, I mean, look at a cigar. You have filler, you have binder, and you have wrapper. The most expensive and prestigious part of the cigar is the wrapper leaf. Well, yes. The smaller you make the ring gauge of a cigar, the more wrapper leaf you are smoking, the higher proportion of wrapper leaf you're smoking. So correct. I came to realize these guys must know something here, because they're all smoking these thinner cigars because they're actually smoking the most expensive part. They're actually getting the flavor from the wrap, which is what, you know, most of that flavor is coming from your wrapper leaf. So it kind of all clicked for me, and it just so happened that I was able to make this cigar in honor of my grandfather, and it all worked out perfectly. And thankfully, Lanceros and thinner sizes in general are becoming way more popular, and people are, you know, seeking them out. You mentioned to me before Bill Ragone, who's a great friend of mine. He's been a huge supporter back when you didn't have to be. Nobody heard of it. You know, I talked about the cigar. I think I did the Johnny Smokes JSU show. Great friends, not just a great show. They're all great friends of mine, and they all just embraced it. They tried it. They promoted it, and that brings me to another point, and I'll shut up after this. But it's just an amazing industry of people who truly try to help each other. That JSU show, it's co-hosted Kevin Kythen of Protocol Cigars. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're in any other industry, you don't want to be bringing on other cigar guys and other guys from Pennsylvania and promoting their brand. everybody in this industry, in a large part, really tries to help each other. They're happy to tell you, hey, I just opened an account at this new tobacco store. You should go check it out. You know, what other industry, what other sales type of industry are people going out of their way to help a competitor get an account? And that speaks to, I think, the industry as a whole and how unique it really is and how people try to help each other.
No, and I totally agree. And you talking is the reason why you're here. So there's no point you having the need to feel like you got
my cigar keeps going out. So I always know when the cigar is going out, shut the hell up. You know what I mean?
So since we kind of touched on it a little bit, before we move into topics, let's kind of tell us the elevator story on how the company was founded, and then any new cigars that you have been released or kind of coming out with.
So I touched on it a little in the beginning. It all started as a hobby and developed into a passion for the business. I was actually just attending a cigar event. I believe it was at Famous Smoke, which is a big online retailer, but also has a presence and a retail shop and a restaurant in the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. And I was just down there with some buddies at a cigar event, love cigars. We drove down. It was about an hour from my house. And I met a gentleman there named Franklin Pichardo. And Franklin, who lives in the Allentown area and had just opened a cigar shop, had spent the previous 14 years as the head roller of Opus X cigars in Carlito Fuente's factory. And he moved here, for family or whatever reasons, but he was, now living in the States, opened his own cigar shop, Tomacao Fine Cigars. And I bumped into him, met him, instantly connected with him, just a great wealth of knowledge in cigars, taught me a lot. We became very close friends. And, he grew up and was born and was from the Dominican Republic. So as we became closer friends, I started traveling to the DR back to his home. But for me, it was, a cigar trip to go and see factories and do things. And he introduced me to who was like a father to him, Carlito Fuente. For so many years was this mentor to him and helped him along the way. And I was fortunate enough to meet Carlito, who I also instantly hit it off with. And I had nothing. There was no agenda of being in the cigar business at that point. I had none of that was on my radar. At this point, it was just, I love cigars and I get to go and, have a cigar and lunch with, one of the gods of the business. So fast forwarding of doing that for a little while, I really just started to learn more about the process and seeing the farms and how the tobacco is harvested and how it is dried, how it is aged, fermented, and then seeing the factories and the whole process that goes into it. All the, they always say, everybody argues, is it, 200 sets of hands, 300 sets of hands that touch every single handmade premium cigar before it comes, till it meets your lips. So falling in love with that whole process, Franklin was then kind enough to sort of help me along back when we're back home in Pennsylvania. He would have tobacco shipped up from the Dominican Republic, and because he's this all-star cigar roller, we would sit there in his shop till 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would just be putting together different combinations of different tobaccos from different regions and different countries. And truly by trial and error, I was able to sort of gather this understanding of how certain things work together. Most of it didn't. Most of the shit that I tried to put together was a disaster. And we did that for, it was probably a period of about 3 years until I thought there's something here. Like there's a cigar that like. This is what I would think is the ultimate cigar. And again, it's all personal preference. But here's what I think is fantastic. And at that point, I'm finally proud enough to say to my father, hey, we want to try this cigar. Let me know what you think, and start giving them to friends and getting some thoughts. So it wasn't until that point that it became a business in the sense of, wow, we should start to sell these cigars. We should try to make these cigars in a larger quantity and come up with a plan here. And I want to share these cigars with people. How do I do it? And so that was sort of how the company began. And like I said, it was all sort of just an organic thing of, this is great. I want to share it with people. I want to put my name on it. And if I'm going to put my name on it, it's going to be the real deal.
So what cigar do you, first off, the fact that you were able to kind of do all this under the tutelage of the Godfather, you had to have a geek out moment, right? I mean, you're a cigar guy. Like I tell Carlito I need like 5 minutes to kind of geek out, and then I'll be normal again. So like, I mean, what is, when you're just sitting there talking with him, and you're a cigar guy, you're a young guy, you're a cigar guy. What was that like for you to all of a sudden have him in your phone book on your cell phone and being able to just randomly get
it happened very quickly. I think that connection happened it was just quick and organic, that we saw things the same way. But it was truly unbelievable to be, and again, I didn't know everything about cigars. I just knew I liked them, and I knew who the big players were. I knew what I thought was a good cigar versus a bad cigar. I mean, still to this day, I can't tell you I taste brambleberries versus oak wood or cedar. It's a preference thing. You like it or you don't. You get hints of this or that. So I find myself in the Dominican Republic, thanks to Franklin, sitting across the desk from Carlito Fuente in the Fuente factory. And, he's given me his cigars out of his desk drawer, all these special things, and taking me on a tour of the factory. I had no business there. I had no reason to be there. There are a lot more guys, plenty more people who have spent way more money on cigars that deserved to be there having that experience before I did. And but honestly, I would say 90% of what we talked about had nothing to do with cigars. And I think that speaks to the character of the man, honestly. Yes. You would be hard pressed to find anyone in this business who lives and breathes it more and is more passionate on a daily basis about every single cigar that leaves that factory. But not just the cigars. I mean, it's the beliefs, it's the man. It's, we sat and talked about family. We sat and talked about, the important things in life, a hell of a lot more than we talked about. Hey, can I get another one of those special cigars out of your desk? I mean, those conversations happened. That was obviously important to me. But no, it was an amazing experience, and to this day, he's someone that I honestly like. If he lived close by, he's the kind of guy you would call when you got a flat tire. You know what I'm saying? And I will say there are a lot of people like that in this business. To me, he'll always be up here. He'll always sort of be the cream of the crop. But there are a lot of guys in this business. Like I said, it's just so unique. There are a lot of people who they're just in this to see everyone do well. I had dinner with Nick Perdomo a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling him, I'm like, Nick, I see you online at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night when someone posts a cigar because the wrapper is peeling on their Perdomo 20th anniversary, and you're messaging back. I mean, here's a guy with a multi-million-dollar company, and he's messaging them back directly saying, hey, where'd you get the cigar? Where do you live? I'll make it right. How do we fix it? You know, I don't think we draw test every cigar. Maybe the cigar was dropped, but I'll fix it. You know, you see that in this industry constantly. So there's big shoes to fill of a lot of these great guys, and I just hope to sort of have some of those same characteristics, and I want to be able to share the cigar with people. I want it to be a positive experience for them, and I want them to want to share it with their friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the reverse goes too, as far as, by the way, if everybody's commenting, I'm not seeing any YouTube comments for some reason. There may be a API issue with the comments coming in from YouTube. I'm seeing Facebook comments. So if you're watching, jump over to Facebook, Rocky Mountain Cigar Show, and comment on that link, and I will be able to get that. I see Bruce and Dan talking, and I'm not able to see really Dan. But anyways, you know, I've experienced the same thing. I have very good friends in the media world. Oh, thanks, Bruce, for testing that out. You came through. I am seeing people in the media world reaching out to me, giving me advice, or hey, if you ever need anything, call me, and here's my number. Or like, hey, I hear you need help with, you know, OBS for broadcasting. Can we set up a time? I'll get on and spend a couple hours with you, and we'll work through it. These guys have nothing to gain by helping me. I mean, if anything, theoretically, I mean, I know we're not NBC, Fox, and CNN, but I mean, theoretically, we are competitors in a sense, but the cigar community is just that. It is, in fact, a community. And it's a community where everybody, well, the vast majority of people are always willing to help. There are the one-offs. I'm not going to say there's not, but the vast majority of people you can reach out to and say, hey, I want to bounce this off you, or hey, I'm thinking of this. And they'll take the time to help. And I've never known, doing marketing for 8 years, I've had so many clients, you know, require us to sign NDAs that, because they're fear that we're going to go to a competitor and be like, hey, this is what they're doing, you got to do this.
Right.
You know, and that doesn't happen for the vast majority of this community. So,
it's totally unique. It's totally, I mean it. I mean, there is no, I have a law firm. I'm kind of a non-traditional attorney. I don't really love, you know, doing traditional lawyering activities like writing wills or handling divorces or things like that. I more became a lawyer for my own businesses and things that I do. But it doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter the industry, whether it's, you know, being a lawyer, it's cutthroat. It's a race to the client. And I don't want the other guy to have my client. And when I do have my client, you know, I'm trying to destroy the other side. And whether it's my asphalt paving and seal coating businesses, or my oil change shop that I had, or with film, I do film production. I mean, all of those industries are all completely, they're just adversarial in nature. And then you come into the cigar business, and it was a wake-up call for me. It was totally different to find. I was wary of it. You know, you start pushing your cigars, and you find these people saying, "Hey, could you give me a couple sticks? I want to share them with a friend of mine at a cigar shop where I live." And my gut was like, "No, you don't. You cheap bastard. You're just trying to get free cigars from me. You know, you're not gonna help me. What is that?" And then you come to find out, like, no, this industry is completely unique in that sense, that people want to see you do well. And in reality, there's enough to go around. And the more people that come into the business, and the more selection that you see on the shelves in a brick and mortar tobacco store, it actually is better in the long run. It actually turns out that this model of trying to help the other guy and be supportive of other cigar companies. And when brick and mortar shops are supportive of other brick and mortar shops, in the long run, it turns out that that's the right model, because at the end of the day, it just brings more people into the business, into the hobby, into the sport of cigars, if you will, and it works out better in the end.
No, totally. And I want to kind of switch topics to a little bit about what you talked about, is to like, it's best for everybody that brands help each other out. So, by the way, disclaimer on this next section, we're going to be talking a little bit about Nicaragua stuff. Max does not and has not represented any tobacco companies, so please don't ask those questions. And we're just going to kind of really touch on a high level, deep diving in Max's thoughts on some of the legalese around what we may or may not see. This is also not going to be a political bashing of any administration or anything like that. So with that disclaimer, let's get into it. What's your thoughts on the whole? Yeah, go ahead.
We'll go to that in a second, but speaking of supporting everybody else, if you are a fan of any Fuente cigars, Opus X, the sort of the marketing genius behind that, Manny Iriarte, is a good friend of mine, and he came out with the Opus X Society, which is this collection of amazing special glasses and wallets and humidors and all of this stuff. And I got these beautiful, it's hard to see. You have the box. These crystal glasses, Opus X Society glasses, which I love to have my bourbon with when I'm smoking a cigar. So, and those are the new ones. I don't even have those. So you're ahead of me.
I'm afraid to use it. I don't want to break it, and I'm so nervous.
I know, but it's worth it. You feel like $1 million using them. They're awesome.
I do use it, but I also, after I'm done with it, I do put it back in the box.
I'm the same way. I'm like, you can't touch that. I got to go clean it myself and put it back and.
Absolutely. So,
okay,
but at a real high level, to the best of your knowledge, kind of walk everybody through what's happening with Nicaragua, what to maybe expect down the pipeline based on what you know, and kind of what effects that may or may not have inside the cigar world.
So, I mean, some of the stuff, it's concerning to think that, a potential embargo or anything like that that would hinder the ability to have cigars from. I mean, listen, we go through it with Cuban cigars. We've been down that road before, and look at it. It doesn't end well, and I understand the politics behind the reasons that things happen and embargoes happen and taxation and all those things with other countries. There are valid points, but I don't want to take a cigar out of anybody's hand, and I don't want to hurt any factory that's supplying these cigars to the U.S. I will say, while all of those things, the stuff with Nicaragua is concerning, the biggest concern is what's going on in this country with the FDA and what they're trying to do to cigars, the ones that make it here, no matter what country they're from. And, as an attorney.
Look at that. Max is doing my lead-ins for me. Good job.
Yeah. As an attorney, it's especially concerning because, going through law school, I remember, I don't remember much from law school, but I do remember you're taking these classes of it's all based on sort of the separation of powers. And, there's these three branches of government. One is making the laws, the other one is enforcing the laws, and the third branch is interpreting the laws and deciding what applies and what doesn't, and to whom it applies and it doesn't. And then you take this other class, so that's like 90% of law school is how all this works together. And then you take this other class called administrative law. And administrative law is okay, yes, everything is separated, and these people make the laws, these people enforce them, and these people adjudicate them, except for when the government can create an administrative agency like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, or the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, or any of them, Health and Human Services, pick one. And those entities are given the power. So I'm speaking specifically
unelected entities,
right? I'm speaking specifically to the FDA because that's what is impacting cigars recently. As far as, you know, should cigars be classified and treated under the law the same way that cigarettes are? And I don't really care where you stand on the issue. My problem is when you have an administrative agency who not only can make their own rules. So I'm going to make the FDA in charge of creating laws and regulations for tobacco. Okay, I can stomach that. But not only do they make the law, they have the power to go out and enforce it. So they can come in the door with their badges and tell you that you're breaking their rule, their law. Okay, well, that's too much. That's a stretch, right?
Yep.
Well, it doesn't stop there, because you would say, oh, if I get arrested for something, if I didn't do it, at least I'll get my day in court. You always hear that. I'll get my day in court. You know, someone who's an uninterested party can come in and understand the facts and make a decision. Well, that doesn't happen with the FDA or the EPA, because they also get to interpret their own laws. They get to be their own court. Or
Judge Dredd. Right.
They can go in and say, okay, the rule is you can't make a cigar this way. Oh, and by the way, you're not making the cigar the right way. Oh, and by the way, judge and jury, we found you guilty, and you owe us money. You're going to jail. You're breaking the law. Whatever. And so, to me, that is where the insanity sets in with regulating cigars. I think everybody deserves to have their thoughts heard in a fair way. I think there's extremely valid arguments as to why cigars are completely different than cigarettes, why cigars aren't marketed to children, why kids, 15-year-old kids are not trying to buy $15 cigars to roll their weed. It's just a completely different industry. And while I'm not opposed to common sense legislation about things, I don't think it's fair to blanketly just include these premium cigars, which are about families, and they're about farming, and they're about, handmade, this beautiful handmade product that brings people together, to say that's the same thing as, kids trying to buy machine-made cigars to roll blunts, or kids trying to buy cigarettes to smoke, under the bleachers at school. We're just having two totally different conversations. So while all of what you said and all the stuff going on in Nicaragua, I think the biggest issue, and it's been going well. I mean, we've been fighting. There's people, there's groups and people and manufacturers that are spending tons of money to fight this fight. And I my hat is off to some of the bigger cigar companies who are fighting this fight. And the reason is they are the ones who would survive if regulations got so strict. They would survive. My company wouldn't, and all of this boutique cigars on the shelves wouldn't. But some of these big companies understand that if you wipe out all of the small companies, you lose that brotherhood that we've been talking about all night. You actually, so maybe Fuente, maybe Altadis, they might survive all those crazy regulations, but it would actually hurt. It would hurt this industry and this brotherhood and sisterhood as a whole. So I applaud them for fighting that right fight, and I think it's important. And these groups like Cigar Rights of America and all of those things, if you're a cigar smoker and you want that to be protected, it's worth a little bit of your attention and a few minutes to get involved and follow along with some of the stuff that's going on.
Absolutely. And for those out there that don't fully understand administrative law, in my opinion, administrative law is a very gray line of unconstitutional, because it is effectively a part of the three sections of government. And you don't see the Supreme Court ever do this, but you definitely see Congress do this, essentially pass the buck, because they don't want to be the ones that look bad, and it gives Congress, regardless of side, because both sides do this shit, the ability to go, it's not us, it's them.
Right.
And in doing that, again, without getting crazy political, I do personally believe that things like the EPA, like the FDA, are wholly unconstitutional as they are currently set up. And it goes to show that what Max just said, you can't fight it, because who's your accuser? Your accuser is the person making the law, and that person is also the judge. So it's always a biased verdict. It's always a biased outcome.
Yeah. And I've sort of fight that fight more because it's become so apparent in the premium cigar industry. But honestly, and this makes it political, but I mean, those are the kinds of things that happen to every industry. It doesn't really matter what you do. If you own a business today, you're probably falling under the jurisdiction of one of these agencies, and it's hard. And I don't care. I don't care if you're a Trump guy, a Biden guy, a Clinton guy, a Bush guy. At some point, when you have these administrative agencies that have so much power and control, things aren't going to go your way, and you're not going to get heard. And I'm okay if things don't go my way, but I want a fair fight, and I want the ability to make my case. And at the end of the day, I might be wrong, but this country was founded upon those principles of separation of powers and being able to have your day in court. And so those kinds of things scare me. And cigars are really where you can see it bright and clear today, because it's happening on a daily basis with cigars.
On top of that, it's the syntax. Obviously, syntax is not a real term in the tax world, but it's everybody knows the tobacco tax and alcohol tax. These are syntaxes. Syntax was developed around the religious aspect of government trying to curtail people from doing bad habits, therefore taxing that. And syntax in itself is just people trying to live their life, and somebody taxing their lifestyle. Right. Is effectively what it is, which in my opinion is wrong. But Dan made a really good point too. It also takes the power away from the states, because now you have a state like Pennsylvania and Florida that want cigars. And here we are, potentially one unelected agency of people that are just appointed could literally wipe out everything to do with an activity that a state wants, that a state wants to allow.
And by the way, you don't even escape it on the state level, because if I want to build a gas station, we can't have gas cars anymore. If I want to build an electric car charging station, not only do I have to fight that fight with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, this big federal behemoth of an administrative agency, I also have to fight the Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, the state agency, which is doing the same damn thing, except even tighter and even closer to home. And it's happening federal, state, municipal level. And it's scary. I mean, we don't have to go into the politics side of it, but as far as how it applies to premium cigars, it's scary, and I don't think it's going to get any easier. I think this fight is going to have to continue for a long time, and I think that's why it's so important that people be, vigorous proponents of what we do and why we smoke these cigars, and why we bring our friends together, why we bring people into the hobby. I've always said I have a lot going on in my day, and the therapeutic value of sitting down and having that cigar at the end of the day, whether it's to go over emails, to respond to phone calls, or to sit with someone, or to sit completely silent and watch the news or whatever, that therapeutic value is far outweighing any health risk that that's where the difference comes in between smoking a cigarette and smoking a cigar. And I simply try to make sure people can draw that line. You can disagree with it, and you can not want it, but you do have to respect the difference between the two.
Everybody's got a vice, and as
Right.
long as that vice doesn't involve hurting somebody else or stepping on somebody else's rights, I think that vice should be allowed. And that's definitely where I stand on it. And I'll get off my soapbox after this, but kind of pisses me off. I'm a big 10th Amendment. I'm a big understander of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution has 17 enumerated powers that the federal government must live in. And anything outside of that's the state. If the state wants to make it onerous, I'm perfectly fine with that, because that's still constitutional. So when
You should have been my constitutional law professor.
It's a sick hobby of mine, law. And as you know, you can really kind of go into the dungeons of a lot of weird theoretical outcomes of certain decisions and stuff like that. And it's just always disappointing when you see essentially Congress give up their rights to control things to give it to somebody else so they can go, it's not us, we're not doing it. And that's essentially what they did. So
don't hold me accountable the next election, because I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I didn't elect that person that's doing that. So we got into that, and I appreciate you kind of going down that road with me here a little bit. Let's see here. What does Dan say? Dan's a very close friend of mine, Dan Thompson.
Hi, Dan.
I think it's okay for us to be pro-freedom and restrict government, especially at the federal level. Absolutely. The whole point of the federal government was it was created by the states. It was not the federal government that created the states. So therefore, the states in the Constitution were always given the powers to usurp the federal government outside of, borders, the Commerce Clause, which was perverted by FDR, and then trading amongst other countries. Outside of that, in my opinion, the state should overrule the federal government. And if the federal government shuts down for a day, we should all be happy.
Dan makes a good point too. I mean, it's if you look at the proponents of larger government today, you can find a period in time where the government's decisions were going against what those people want today. So while it may be going your way now, don't let that be the reason you're a proponent of larger government, because it's only a matter of time before you're on the opposite side of the spectrum. And I'm willing to forego, things going my way because the government's allowing it, in order to have, just my own ability to make decisions, and sort of, you have nothing to do with it, Mr. Government.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite things that I've always found out about government is your freedom to be you is also my freedom to be free from you. So if you don't like this activity, don't do it. I don't have to like your lifestyle. I don't have to like your vices, but I should always be willing to let you be you. and to let you do those vices as long as you don't send me the bill or as long as you don't hurt me in the process. What's that federal that famous court case? My right to swing my arm stops at the tip of your nose. What is
Yeah,
that? That's the
you're
that
asking the wrong guy
1800s.
for case law, but I know exactly what you mean.
I can't remember what that
Yeah.
was. 1800 case law.
By the
But
way,
anyways,
I want to, and we can go back to this, whatever you want, but I want to pay you a compliment on, this show and the sort of, I think you have a unique platform in the way you aim it towards novice smokers. You aim it towards people who kind of want to, are newer in the hobby, but also, I mean, the conversations we're having, you could be a lifelong cigar smoker, know everything in the world, know way more than you or I put together, but you can also come in and watch this show kind of just getting into cigars. Everything is sort of kept at a level in a way that you can grow and learn from things that are going on. So I appreciate it. I think it's a very valuable forum to have. A lot of shows sort of are sort of held at a level up here where sometimes even I feel like, am I missing something, or do I just not know enough about tobacco and cigars to be in this room? But guys like you and guys like Johnny Smokes, and you just have a great forum for people that's sort of welcoming to everybody coming into the hobby or the most experienced smoker out there. So thanks. And I know so much work goes in it, and I know I've watched your show before, and you're managing everything, the cameras, whatever. I'm sure you got a shitload of money and getting all this technology and microphones, and but you're doing God's work. You're doing a great service to the sport and the hobby of cigars. So I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that we were able to be doing this tonight. I'm not saying we got to go right this second, but I wanted to make sure I got that out there.
No, yeah, of course. And you know what? That truly does mean a lot, because I watch a lot of shows, and I always try to do something different, bring something different to the table, give her different either outlook or voice. And to me, this is very interesting stuff. This is stuff that, in my opinion, is talked about on some shows, but isn't talked about to the extent that it should be, because I don't want to hurt feelings. So I truly appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much. That absolutely does mean a ton, because I've really worked hard to kind of find the voice of this show and kind of how I want everything to move forward. And it's an honor to have you on as well, Max.
You're doing something right.
Thank you so much.
And I want to also, because I don't think we mentioned him, but so the after Franklin Pichardo, after Franklin was so helpful in getting me going in the business of making cigars. He introduced me to a guy named Francisco Almonte, and Francisco owns DBL Cigars, Dominican Big Leaguer, based in the Dominican Republic, obviously. And Francisco he's like a brother to me, just like Franklin. He's where we make our cigars. He was the one who took me under his arm, took me to the fields, took me to meet the guys who were picking my leaves, and helped me develop relationships with our rollers, with the guys who are there picking the pilons and picking the tobaccos and making the blends and the bundles for the cigars. And without him, none of it's possible. I think you often find people who get into business and they want to just say, this cigar, it's named after me and it's great and I made it and I'm the most wonderful thing in the world. But it's truly, I have the pleasure. It's an honor for me to be able to put my name on a cigar that so many people came together and helped me produce. And it would be nowhere without them. And there's a lot of trust and loyalty that goes into this, because I'm the white guy from Scranton, Pennsylvania that doesn't even speak Spanish, and I've got to put all this trust in, in a factory that's 1,200 miles away, and guys that I can't directly communicate with, and there's a lot of relationship building there, and a lot of trust that goes into it, and being so fortunate to have those people in place that I can trust to help me put out a product that I can put my name on, is that's been like a blessing for me. And without them, there's nothing. So and DBL has an amazing line of cigars. And if you're in a shop anywhere across the country, Francisco's actually in Berlin right now at Intertabac, I think, where a lot of those guys are at the big show pushing their lines. And so if you find DBL cigars anywhere, any of their lines of cigars, the Durames, the Extra Viejo, I mean, you owe it to yourself to try these cigars. And there are cigars that are, $8, $9 cigars that will knock your socks off. And it wasn't until I was smoking all of his cigars until I said, like, this guy's got it figured out, and I want to work with him. So I have a huge debt of gratitude to all of those guys at DBL.
I tell you what, man, you're making my segments so easy. Because the next thing I was going to ask you about is kind of my running theme that I've had all year. And I've had people on the show that are twice your age, twice my age, that answer these questions. And it's very interesting to me, and I've been very excited, chomping at the bit to kind of ask you mentor-mentee style questions, because you are so young. I mean, you're 33 years old. So, but you're an attorney, and I know every good attorney I've ever spoken to has at least other mentor style attorneys to bounce things off of, and some to just tell you to grow the fuck up and deal with the case. So what is your stance on having a mentor at 33 years old? What is your stance at having a mentor in your life? When was the first time? Obviously, a mentor relationship's not like, oh, well, now you're my mentor.
Right.
It kind of happens organically to the point where you don't even know it's happening until about 5 years after it's happened, and you think back of how much that person has meant to you and guidance they've given to you. So tell us a little bit about your journey with having a mentor or being a mentee.
So I'm a big proponent of people gaining as much life experience as they can. Take that trip, study abroad. I think what I'm most grateful for is growing up for me was sort of this myriad of different worlds. My father, who's also an attorney, but he was a mafia prosecutor, but aside from his prosecuting days, which were very early, he went on to have a career working in 2 White Houses, working on counterterrorism, working across the world, and I saw how he made a law degree work for him outside of the courtroom. But I also grew up, at 12 years old, working in a junkyard, friends of my family. And to this day, I'm more comfortable in work boots than I am in a Carhartt shirt than I am in a suit and tie. And I think, having all of those different experiences and sort of growing up in multiple worlds where, my weekend might start, tearing apart an old truck or working in the junkyard or doing something. And the end of the day, I'm in a tuxedo at a state dinner in the East Wing of the White House. Having those experiences and being able to sort of understand where so many different people come from. I think you get jaded when you come up in one of those realms and you never sort of understand. You end up, if you're if you come from a family and your father owns a plumbing business and you're a trades worker, obviously, I mean, the most valuable people in the world are those people who are able to have all the, but you see the guys in the suit and tie as like, they're out of touch. They don't understand. And if you're the guy in the suit and tie, you're looking at the guy who's fixing your dishwasher, like you're better than him. And so I think while there have been a couple specific people to your mentor-mentee point, I think just as important is sort of just having general experience in all of the different facets of life. And, you being able to put on a suit and go in the courtroom and being able to fix your own truck, are equally important. And it's what has allowed me to sort of grow and prosper as a human, and be relatable to other people. But to your point, I mean, growing up and having a father who was so involved in all of those different things, having a mother who was sort of there to knock me down a few pegs and keep me grounded. You just learn humanity from so many different angles, that I think you become a better human because of it. So I don't know if that's a long answer to your short question.
No,
but I think it's one of the most important things is to sort of get out of your comfort zone. Learn. If you come from a family and both your parents are doctors, go learn what it's like to have a painting business. Work as a painter. And if you come up and you have a blue collar family, go down the street and talk to your neighbor who's a doctor or a lawyer, and understand what that world is like, and what's involved in and sacrifices in that kind of a life. And I think I don't know. I think that applies to everything. I think you can apply it to politics, if you can bring that mentality of being able to sit down with anybody and find that common ground. I think most of the problems in the world would just go away. You know what I mean? If you could sit down and have
absolutely. So when you're in your life, and you probably do, you've mentioned Carlito. I think the way you talked about him would usually lend me to believe that you would consider him a friend, mentor, somebody you can either confide in. So when you're looking for somebody to model a section or an aspect after, because you like how they do that, I've had people tell me, don't go to the guy that's been divorced 3-4 times to ask for marriage advice unless that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you look for in somebody that you want to kind of bring into that very private part of your life as having that type of ability to give you that style of advice?
I look for humble people, and you made a great point with Carlito. But one of the most important things about that relationship is we really never talk about cigars. In fact, I've never said this, but I've never given Carlito a Maximilian cigar. I've never brought it up. I've never said, hey, you're the king of cigars. Can you help me get into your shop in Vegas, or Casa Fuente in the Dominican Republic? It's not about that. And I think that's why their relationship is maybe so strong. So I look for those qualities in people, that ability to be humble, the ability. I want to sit down with somebody who can tell me about their screw ups and their mistakes. You don't get to be super successful because everything you did was right. And everybody learns from their own mistakes, but they can also learn from other people's mistakes. And I don't care to sit and hear your elevator pitch about how wonderful you are. That's great. Good for you. I could go look at your Instagram or your Facebook if I want to see how perfect your life is. And you could look at mine if you want to see how perfect my life is. But I want to be able to sit down and understand your failures and your mistakes, and try to avoid them in my own life, and I want to bounce my concerns and my failures off of you. And I think it has to be that give and take. I think this world of like self-promotion and everybody's got it all figured out and everybody's perfect, and then they go and kill themselves because you didn't realize that there was so many other things going on. So I think the people who are able to sort of shed that pride, and these are things that I struggle with every day. You know, I'm far from perfect. You know, that's a conversation you have to consistently have with yourself about where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses. You can be proud of your strengths without being an asshole, and you could be real about your weaknesses without being weak. So I think that's a fine line, but I think the more you try to walk that line and bring the right people into your life, the people you surround, I'm a firm believer, the people you surround yourself with are who you are. And it's a reflection of you and where you're headed. So if you're the smartest guy in the room, there's a problem. I don't think you should ever be the smartest guy in the room.
No, and you're 100% right. It's the old adage, show me 5 of your friends and I'll show you where you'll end up.
Sure.
You know, it's that exact same understanding. We got Bill joining in the show. Yes, Bill,
we're going. Hi, buddy.
Love this Lancero. And yes, Bill, you did say it.
Bill heard me on the JSU show. I think it was the first time that I was on it. I was just coming out with the Mayor Cigar, promoting it. He literally called Lena at New Tobacco Village, who's an amazing shop. Literally called her on the phone while we were still doing the JSU podcast and ordered a box of the Mayor Cigars. So awesome. he's been supporting it from the beginning, and I owe him a big one for that.
Bill is a really great guy, and so is the whole team over at JSU.
Yeah.
Now, I want to kind of touch base on when you are, like you had mentioned, you want somebody that's humble, and I personally feel a mentor is only a good mentor if they could also admit their faults to you as the mentee. Right. So if you are looking at somebody for advice and you feel that, okay, let me ask it a different way. There has been multiple times where I've stopped talking to people in my life as a mentor for about a week because they gave something that was far too real that I was unwilling to listen to. But eventually, over a period of a few days, I was like, they're right, and I was an asshole. Do you find mentors need to have the ability to be absolutely brutally honest to the point where if you don't want to hear it, it's what you need to hear?
Yeah, I get teased that like I'm out there fighting the fight of, you know, I'm trying to right all the wrongs in the world and, you know, tell people what they need to hear. Granted, I hate to hear it sometimes. I hate to when someone has to tell me what I need to hear. I turn into a big asshole, and so it's a whole thing. But you know, alternatively, I feel the need to be that guy. And there's a lot of people who hate me for a short period of time because I tell them something that they don't want to hear but need to hear. If it's a friend, you know, if it's somebody who, you know, you think can handle it. And I love the saying, and I'm sure there's an eloquent way of saying it, but I'll butcher it. So when someone says something to you or about you and you get pissed off, it's kind of pointless because either what they're saying is true and you just don't want to hear it, and your pride's getting in the way and you're pissed off, and what they're saying is true, and you really shouldn't be mad because it's true. Why are you going to be mad at the person if they said something that's true? Or what they're saying is not true, and what the hell do you care if it's not true? Why are you going to let it ruin your day? Only you knows what's true, what's not true, what you think, what you don't think, what you believe in, and what you don't believe in. So either they're right, and you should swallow your pride and admit it, and can't be mad at the person, or they're wrong, and they're wrong. And why would you let that keep you up at night?
No, absolutely. And again, I've had people in my and by the way, everybody, like I love asking these questions because I have about 12 to 15 people in my life, both business and personal, some overlap for who I go to and confide in. And I personally think the best mentors in my life have pissed me off because they tell me something I don't want to hear. But to your first point, you're right. They tell you something that you know is true, and you're like, shut up. I don't want to deal with it right now.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, I'm not talking to you because I want to hear it. It's not because what they're saying is not true. It's because you know that it's true. And that is when that growth starts to really, really happen. Right. And I'm also a firm believer that a good person in your life is always going to potentially tear you down, but tear you down in a way that constructively builds you back to a better, more stronger person than where you were.
Right.
It's okay to not like what somebody says. It's your response to what they say that builds your character or shows your character. You can either be an asshole and say, screw off, I'm done with you, or you can go, ooh, that was hard to hear. All right.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. I got to process.
Yeah.
We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, and personally for me, I would not be in sales as long as I have been if I did not have people around me that were like, you fucked up, but here's where you fucked up, and here's how you get over it, and here's how you get through it. Yeah. If everybody just told me I screwed up, it would suck.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's hard. I think my problem is I sometimes don't know how to be selective with the people that I speak like that to, because they just see it as an attack, and I'm an asshole at the end of the day either way. Yes. But especially with the people, in your, I have a very small circle, and those people, I need that brutally honest relationship with those people, and everything that I'm saying to them is either a lesson I'm working on myself or one that I've already learned. And that's that give and take. And when they're telling me that something doesn't look right, something doesn't feel right, you're not approaching this the right way. And you know what, at the end of the day, I might not agree with them. I may go and do what I think anyway, but having that ability to have that communication with certain people in your life, able to be real with them, able to reality check them. We live in this world of everybody's perfect and everybody gets a trophy and everybody's amazing, and that's not the case. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. I'm not amazing. I'm not any of those things. I try my hardest every day, and some days I should try harder. And until you can sort of accept that and realize that every day is a progression and every day is a new chance to do better, be better. If you can't accept that, we're probably not going to be in the same circle.
No, absolutely. And I love watching. I'm weird. I love watching lectures on YouTube, TED Talks, philosophical lectures, and I forgot who I was listening to on a TED Talk, but they were talking about how they never wanted somebody in their life that has never failed. And he said, and it'll stick with me, I just can't remember his name, but he said, it's not that I don't want anybody in my life that's never failed, but I don't want anybody, and because he goes, everybody has failed.
Sure.
One way or the other in their life. I never want somebody in my life that never felt like they failed, because that means they never truly learned from anything that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, when you go through the vast expansion of time and look at the massive names, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers. He goes, you only hear the myths. You don't ever hear the fact that Standard Oil almost went out of business, that he had to completely change his rail lines
Right.
to get oil across the country. You don't hear that. You just hear Rockefeller, Standard Oil. And he goes, nobody that's a giant in any industry has never failed, but every single
all
giant.
been down and out.
And most of them, when you ask them what their biggest successes are, they will tell you it's learning from what I did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a lot of character. I
totally agree. And it's actually, when you're younger, you sort of see the wisdom of your elders. Okay, whatever, I'm supposed to listen to them because they're older. And, when I was younger, I had friends with nothing. And because I grew up in all these different worlds, I also had friends that had everything you could ever want. They had every toy, they had every vacation home, they had every car on their 16th birthday. And I used to think, like, why couldn't I be that kid? Like, why couldn't I just have all that shit already? And never have to worry and have these homes and have these cars and have the money and, they paid for educations and all of those things. And I felt like that for so long, knowing, because I knew so many people that had it and that was so great. And why couldn't I have it? And then as I got a little older, there's been this shift where I've grown to appreciate, because I've understood not having some nice things, when you build something and you fail and then you try again and you build it, that steak dinner tastes so much better when you knew what it was like to have hot dogs. If you grow up eating steak, you never will appreciate it. And that's sort of the simplest way to put it. But and I've been so lucky and fortunate, and I'm not saying I'm not one of the people who say I was fighting to find my next meal or anything like that. But I do know what it was like to not have everything you ever wanted and to be around the people who had it. And over the years, I've become so proud of not having certain things and being able to achieve those goals on my own and build something and make something, so that now when you go out for that steak dinner, it means something. It just tastes a hell of a lot sweeter, if that makes any sense.
No, totally. And in fact, to your point, when I was 16, I got a Ford Focus. All my friends were like, "You got a Ford Focus?" It was cheap. My parents were nice enough to put their name on the bill so that way I could pay it. And I will promise you, I had more respect for that car than my friends did who were given a car, whether it be a new one or a beater. Yep. And the reason why is because I was actually paying for that car.
Right.
It was something that, it's not the car I ever wanted for the rest of my life, but it was a great launch point for me to appreciate the success that I had at that young age of working and paying for something. And when friends would get in my car, I'd look at them and be like, "Don't do that." "Oh, what do you care? I'm paying for this car. Don't do that." Like, my parents didn't just give it to me. Like, stop.
Right.
And you take more pride in it.
You come to realize just how lucky we are that we were born here. We're born in America. Yes. And I go to the factory in the Dominican Republic, and you see those being a cigar roller is one of the best jobs you can have in the country. And the pay, if you put it in US terms, is embarrassing. Those are some of the happiest people you will ever meet. It's a great lesson, and I come home with that lesson every single time I come home from the factory. That it's you could say it all you want, that money doesn't buy happiness. You go to that factory, those people are there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and 5 o'clock, they're not rushing out the door at 5 and throwing their time cards. And they slow down, they finish, they clean their space up. They sit down with the coworkers. I come in, we get Coke in the glass bottle or a bottle of rum. And you would think I walked in there and handed everybody a car like I was Oprah because I brought Cokes and, some rum and, we ordered some food. And we'll sit there all night and we'll have a great talk. And you know what? Most of those people, they don't have an iPhone. A lot of them don't have a car. They have a scooter. They have this.
And they have electricity.
Right. And you understand. Yeah, they shut the rolling power outages. You don't get electricity on Thursdays. And you see those people by force. They were forced to appreciate what's really important, which is like family and companionship and camaraderie. You come home, you land in Newark, and everybody's worried about, I'm pissed off because I can't afford the newest iPhone. I have the 13 and the 14 just came out. And, my Mercedes C-Class isn't an E-Class or an S-Class. And these people are so miserable. And it's like you're so out of touch, but you can't blame them. They've never experienced it. It comes back to the point that I made, an hour ago, that you have to understand what you don't have to understand what you do. And you have to understand, what the other side of the tracks looks like to realize that maybe you don't have it so bad. Yes. We're in such competition with each other. And I don't say that as someone who's got it all figured out, because I'm the same. That new pickup came out and I just bought this pickup, and you know what I mean? And my buddy's at that hottest restaurant in Manhattan tonight, and I'm not there. I don't have a contact at that restaurant. I can't go there. And then it's like, wait a minute. What about Ernesto at the factory, who they have one flip phone in the whole house, and no electricity on Thursdays, and you couldn't beat the smile off of his face because he has it all. He's got this loving family. He's got a job. He does what he enjoys, and it's just it is a wake up call, and I welcome it every single time I go to the factory or go anywhere outside of my normal realm of life. It's something everybody needs to open their eyes to what's around them.
Absolutely. The old adage, first world problems. And that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Third world problems are always much more severe, but you're right. When you look at the countries that have nothing, they always have one underlining theme. They always have their family. And
right.
That is their most important aspect. And I think we have lost sight of that in some aspects in this country with what you just said. Yeah. Oh, I've got the 13. I don't have the new one. I don't have the new PS5. I don't have this. I don't have the new car.
If you can't be
my
happy,
car doesn't have a new button that the new one has.
You're right. If you can't be happy without any of that stuff, you'll never be happy with it. It'll never be enough. I fought that battle. Yep. It's never enough, never enough. And sometimes you got to smack yourself in the face and look around and say, you know what, I have more than almost anybody. Yep. And if you can be happy just having your family around you and the simple things in life, you're 99% of the way there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for going down that rabbit hole with me. I appreciate that. In closing of the show, I've got some lightning round questions here to throw at you. What is your favorite size cigar?
So I'm probably that Robusto size is what I reach for the most. I would say that's my go-to. I rarely go much bigger in ring gauge, and I'm happy to go smaller than that. And it's, I will try any cigar. I love people accuse me of, like, they see me in a cigar shop and they're like, why aren't you smoking a Maximilian? You don't like it? Like, no, that's the reason Maximilian can keep getting better and better, is because I want to understand what everybody else can do and get inspiration. And try different cigars, and it's no different than trying different bourbons and scotches and wines. I think you should have Actually, it's funny. It's the point that I've made this whole night. You really need to experience as much as you can to understand what you actually like. Instead of staying in that bubble. I don't know how many friends of mine, they all feel the need to go out Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. Most of them actually don't want to go out, but they do it because that's what everybody else does, and that's what they think is what's fun, and we're supposed to do that. And then when you realize that, well, your friend is only there because he thinks you want to be there, and he thinks that's what you're supposed to be doing. I'm off on a tangent, but you have to experience all the different. You have to experience sitting at home and watching Netflix, and going out to the bar every night, and playing chess online to know what do you actually enjoy.
No, absolutely. And to be honest with you, at 37 years old, I look at a Friday night sitting at home watching Netflix with my wife as pure enjoyment, and I look at going out until 2 a.m. as just exhausting. I mean, and you know what? In my early 20s, I'm like, I'm not coming home until 4.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm at home by 9, and I'm in bed by 10:30. So
yeah, just like all the different labels in the box of Maximilian Cigars, that represents really the diversity of what you should experience in life, and that's how you become yourself. Being confident, and being confident in knowing what you want and don't want, being not afraid to say, I don't like doing that, or this is where I want to put my attention and focus. I think that's when you really grow as a person and become better.
Absolutely. And Bruce says here, I can't go out Thursdays because I have to watch Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. Funny thing about Bruce, I took a week off and I forgot to tell everybody. And Bruce reached out to me. He goes, are you okay? Is everything okay? Bruce is an avid watcher of the show. Told me I messed his Thursday night up when I took a night off because I didn't pre-warn him, which makes me feel great because I love the fact that people sit around and smoke a cigar and watch the show and have some drinks.
Yeah, everything I said applies. Be your own person, except for watching the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. I don't care if you think you should or you shouldn't. It's what the cool people do, and if you want to be cool, you have to watch it.
Hey, yeah, that makes you cool, and call me Miles Davis for a little bit of another little show reference. But anyways, so what is your favorite cut?
I'm a straight cut guy. I've always done the straight cut. Listen, if you take the end of the cigar off, I'll smoke it. But straight cut, and my actual favorite, and especially smoking my own cigars, was when you're in the factory, you can't find a cigar cutter. Everybody is just pinching off that little wrapper leaf, either with their finger or biting it off. And that's actually the perfect cut. You're literally trying to take off that leaf, a single leaf. You're not cutting. You really shouldn't be cutting any of the cigar off. So aside from having the Zycar straight cut, I'm picking it off with my thumbnail. Just that cap, that single leaf of the cap, I think gives you the best smoke.
What is a wrapper? What is your favorite wrapper? Now, you could give me musician, but I'm mainly asking, what is your favorite wrapper in a cigar? And part 2 to that, what is a wrapper that you would love to have a Maximilian cigar made with that's not currently there?
Okay, so my favorite wrapper, generally speaking, is a Habano wrapper. I think that gives you the greatest rounded flavor experience. I think it's the most balanced wrapper. When I designed these cigars, blended these cigars, my goal was, I love big flavor cigars. Sometimes I don't like that nicotine punch that you get with big flavored cigar. I love a full body cigar after that steak dinner that we all earned that we were talking about. But I also want to have big flavor early in the day, and I don't necessarily want to smoke that powerhouse of a cigar. And so going through the process, I found that my Ecuadorian Habano sun-grown wrapper was this flavor bomb of a wrapper. And then going a little more milder in the filler and binder allowed you to have this big flavor without that huge nicotine punch that you might get from heavier cigars. So, yeah, I would say the Habano is my go-to favorite. We've yet to come out with a Maduro wrapper. I'm one of these guys. I'll smoke a Maduro cigar, first cigar in the morning. Like I think
same here.
Too many people get wrapped up in dark means strong, light means mild. It's all baloney. I've had Connecticut wrapped cigars that will knock you on your ass, and Maduro cigars that smoke like there's nothing. So I think the Maduro. I love that. I love that rich, ripe sweetness. I find Maduro to be the sweetest wrapper, not the harshest wrapper. So I would say that's sort of in the works, and we've got some blends on the shelf that would be that would be where we're sort of headed if we were to come out with our next cigar.
Perfect. And what is your favorite drink to pair with a cigar?
It's definitely going to be a whiskey as far as pairing.
My man.
Yeah. And I love bourbon and scotch, and I kind of go back and forth. I would say with Maximilian Cigars specifically, the way that we age and ferment and that whole process is sort of centered around that. Like, if you smell my cigars dry, pre-light, you get that like orangey, almost like an old-fashioned smelling smell. And bourbons tend to have way more of those characteristics than scotches. So I would say bourbon is sort of the perfect pairing. But I'm also one of these guys. You give me, I'll drink a Pellegrino. I'll drink a glass of wine. We'll have vodka martinis. If it's simple, I'll do it.
Now, if you were to be able to have a cigar with anybody in history outside of Jesus and Churchill, who would you have a cigar with, and what cigar, whether it be yours or somebody else's, hopefully yours, would you give them?
Man, so that's a tough question because there are so many. I mean, Churchill's that's the obvious answer, and I would have to say, I would want to go back in, my lineage of family members. I think cigars, especially back in the day, played a much bigger role. You were smoking on airplanes and in restaurants, and but to go back even further and to be able to sit down with someone who would eventually lead to the progression of my family and me eventually. I'm a firm believer that you have to understand where you've been to know where you're going. So any opportunity, I love digging into where my family's come from, and my mother's side, we have European, German roots. My father's side is Italian and Lebanese. So I'm in love with all of those cultures and sort of melding them together. So to me, being able to go back up the line in my family and sit down with someone who I would have never met, from 100 years ago, and understand who they are and where they come from and how that led to me would be an amazing experience.
So kind of like a Back to the Future style experience where you're Marty McFly that goes back to see a relative from the 1800s. That would be absolutely fun.
Yeah.
I've never gotten that one. To where somebody.
I have one original thought. Ryan. We made it an hour and 55 minutes, and Max Peters came up with one original thought.
Well, I'll tell you what, Max, it has been an absolute delight to have you on. Thank you so much for going down the rabbit hole of questions. And honestly, your Lancero is fantastic. I am one of those people that has about 3 to 4 boxes of Lanceros in my humidor at every given moment, including some loose ones laying around. I am a Lancero fanatic in that sense, and I know I'm an oddball in that world, but I personally think a Lancero is more of an elegant cigar. So the fact that you were so kind to send me the Lancero, like without you even knowing that. I opened the box and that's the first one I grabbed.
I'm proud
And
of
then
that
I smoked
cigar.
another one, and then I smoked your Toro, because it's really, really good. Definitely, guys, if you've not had a Maximilian cigar, do your best to find them. So, in closing the show, Max, don't jump off real quick, but in closing the show, tell everybody how to find your cigars, tell everybody where to find your cigars, and just kind of reiterate a little bit more as far as, again, just rescoping your brand.
So we are, like I said, we're a tiny company, boutique cigar company, and I've made it sort of this far. We get carried in brick and mortar stores across the country, but I've made it my mission to sort of only sell in stores where I've had some sort of a personal contact. Again, it was never about selling a cigar to everybody on the face of the earth. So fortunately enough, I've been able to travel across the country and across the world. And when I've made contacts in cigar shops in different cities, obviously we're more heavily based, in the East Coast of the U.S. Those are shops that we're in more frequently. But I always tell people, reach out to me. Our social media, Maximilian Ultra Premium Cigars on Facebook, at Maximilian Cigars on Instagram. Tell me where you're at. And I'll tell you where we are close by. If I can find a shop that's close by to where you are, I'll point you in the right direction. I obviously always want to push people to brick and mortar stores. That's a big priority to me. If you're completely out and not anywhere, where you have a close by store, there are a lot of brick and mortar stores that will ship to you. I mentioned Lena from New Tobacco Village. She ships all over the place. I do business with bestcigarprices.com. They have been amazing with not undercutting brick and mortar stores. That's been so important to me as far as pricing and availability. So no matter where you are, you can go to Best Cigar Prices and order cigars, and a lot of times they'll ship them for free, or depending on what you order, I would say to go there. But first, connect with me. Let me know where you're at, and if you have a cigar shop that you're involved in, a guys that you know very well, tell me, and I'll find a way to get out there and meet them, or I'll find a way to get you cigars and get them in the shop. But I want to know. I like to know everybody who's selling my cigars. I like to have that personal connection with them. I don't want to just sell cigars because we can, because they may buy them, but they're not going to buy them again without that sort of relationship, which I think is so important.
No, and I totally agree with you. Brick and mortars are where it's at. I normally don't do this after I finished my lightning round, but Bruce is such a great guest, and I
Bruce
know
had a great question I saw pop up.
Yes, and I know he wants this question answered. What is your favorite time of the day to smoke?
So traditionally, it's end of the day. I love to light a cigar and sort of close out the day, but I will tell you, some of the most enjoyable cigars I have ever had are that morning cigar. And when I can find an opportunity to pour a cup of coffee, light a cigar in the morning, clean palate, first thing in the day, that is that can be a completely magical experience. So I think everybody tends to smoke more from lunchtime and on. So I'm going to go, Bruce, I'm going to go with first thing in the morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Max, for joining me. As everybody, always, thank you so much for watching Rocky Mountain Cigar Show live on Thursday nights. And again, a huge shout out to my show sponsors, Drew Estate. Drew Estate. We have ROCF Cigars, BAMF Cigars. We also have K by Karen. We have New Air Humidors and Christoph Cigars, as well as we cannot forget somebody who I personally feel is becoming a mentor for me, Dan Thompson over at McAuliffe Cigars. And the drink that we all had tonight was the Axe and Oak Bourbon as well. So I wouldn't be able to do this show without everybody's help. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Truly appreciate everybody. And as we close out the show every single week, smoke what you like, Smoke as often as you can. Have an absolutely great rest of your week. Bye-bye.